In the Gospel, we heard the story of the raising of Lazarus. Most biblical commentaries claim that the raising of Lazarus is not the most important part of this story. They seem to think that the emergence of Lazarus from the tomb is secondary to the anticipated event which would become known to the generations as the Passion of Christ, which is why this Sunday has always been known down the ages as Passion Sunday. The word passion had a strictly religious meaning long before it acquired romantic connotations. The English word passion is derived from the Latin word passio and referred exclusively to Jesus' suffering. In the English church, the 2 weeks before Easter became known as Passiontide, a sort of sub-season of Lent with its own color and distinctive practices. The color was crimson, and it was customary to cover pictures and statues beginning with this Sunday. Those who think about these things have decided that Passion should apply to Palm Sunday because that's when we read the Passion Sunday has fallen into disuse, except with me. I will always call this Passion Sunday, and Palm Sunday will always be Palm Sunday. People who write about the liturgical events of Holy Week and Easter like to remind us that we are taking part in a great drama. And is it frivolous of me to suggest that there is too much going on for only 1 week? It is like trying to turn Hamlet into a one-act play. Let us look at this drama, and let us begin today. When the curtain comes up, we discover that something is different. Part of the set has been covered up. The cross which we look at from week to week has now been draped with purple. This is done to attract our attention. In the old days, statues and ornaments were covered to draw our attention away from them and to the cross. Well, we've done it the other way around. We have drawn attention to the cross. The explanation comes to us that this is to concentrate our attention on the words, the most important words we will ever hear. So how are we to take part in this drama? There are some people who take this too literally and allow themselves to be crucified. In his letter to the Galatians, St. Paul says, "I have been crucified with Christ." It is a strange thing to say, and we cannot take it literally, because Paul had not been literally crucified when he wrote that letter. Rather, he is describing a way of living, a direction of purpose, a way of identifying himself with Jesus in his death on the cross. What could it mean for someone to say, "I have been crucified with Christ"? It may be that this will be the best way to understand the crucifixion itself. In the language of theater, the actor is most effective who gets inside the character. Otherwise, he is just reciting lines and is not convincing. It seems to me that the only way to understand what Jesus is doing by dying is to share his death, to be crucified with him. It is relevant to notice that Jesus apparently said very little to his disciples about the meaning of his death. You could scarcely say that he taught them a doctrine of the atonement. These are sayings of Jesus about his death in the Gospels, and they will throw some light about his attitude toward it. But what is much clearer is that he invited his disciples to follow him and to share his death. If they share it, then they will understand it. They will see the crucifixion from the inside and not from the outside. And that may be the only way in which this event can really be seen and understood. Our problem is, how can this be done? How can we think the thoughts of Jesus about his crucifixion? And how can we share his attitude toward his death? Jesus believed that he was not dying for his own sake, that he was doing something by dying for the sake of other people. Jesus has undertaken the journey to Jerusalem and allowed himself to be arrested and condemned to death. He might have made efforts to save himself, but he allowed his crucifixion to happen and let it go on. Almost, we might say, he made it happen. He brought it on because he believed that he was doing something for the sake of other people and not for his own sake. Certainly, there have been people who have sought death for their own sake because of some mental unbalance or to avoid the responsibilities of living. All the evidence we have about Jesus points in the opposite direction. He does not seem to have been morbid. He does seem to have loved life and to have accepted the goodness of living. It would be contrary to all the evidence to suggest that he went to his death as a suicide. What was his purpose in going to Jerusalem to die? In one of his few recorded sayings on this subject, he says, "The Son of Man came to minister and to give his life a ransom for many." When he said for many, he meant for everybody, for the world. His death, he says, is for the sake of everybody. It will have an effect upon them, which will be like releasing people from oppression or imprisonment. It will be a ransoming, setting people free. So he, the Son of Man, will serve the world and do something for everybody, giving them release and freedom by means of his death. And there is something similar in another saying of Jesus when he made his disciples drink a cup of wine and then said to them, "This is my blood of the new covenant, which is poured out for many." Here again, the words "for many" mean for everybody. And the blood of the covenant also means release, freedom from slavery. Jesus had come to Jerusalem to die for the world. He was offering it to God in death so that the world might be lifted up to God and set free from the domination of evil. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. And this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Jesus says, "Come and be crucified with me." All I want to know is, how am I to do that? The one point I can know is this: to be crucified with Christ, to enter into his crucifixion, his intention and purpose in dying is to live for other people and not for myself. Ordinarily, my life is organized around myself, and things are judged according to whether they do or do not go along with my own plans and ambitions. But to be crucified with Christ will mean the end of all that. To be crucified with Christ will mean living for other people and not for myself, keeping my attention fixed on the exterior world and not on the interior, not on my plans, my ambitions, my success. The word which the New Testament uses for this attitude is agape, which means love. Seeking the good of your neighbor and not your own good. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay our lives down for others. The fruit of the Spirit, Paul says, is love. Now, living for others might be caricatured as being a busybody about other people's affairs, chasing after people, trying to be helpful, being a do-gooder. But this would be only a caricature of what is really meant by love. Nevertheless, although there is clearly scope for need for people who will really live for others today, still, because there is a terrible possibility of the caricature, the busybody, the meddler in other people's affairs, let me concentrate on one particular way of living for others, one way, a way to start living for others. The technical name for this is intercession, praying for other people. It involves the giving up of time and imagination and desire for other people. So it is a work of love, seeking their good at a certain cost to yourself. You try to enter into the other person's life as much as you can. You try to bear the burden of being them. You go out from yourself into the life of others and try to get into their shoes, their skin, and offer your life to God in them. You are laying down your life for others, substituting yourself for them, offering yourself as a ransom for them, pouring out a bit of your life as much as you can to God for them. Praying for other people is a work of love for them, an offering of time and imagination and desire to God for them. Because it is done before God and for others, it is of the same nature as the death of Jesus, a ransom for many, blood which is poured out for many. And if we begin continuously living for others with intercession, we shall be the more likely to avoid the danger of being a busybody and a meddler or a do-gooder. The more we practice living for other people and praying for them, the nearer we shall find ourselves to Jesus in his crucifixion, and the more his dying for the world will make sense for us. We shall then understand the crucifixion from the inside. Thanks be to God.